We'll call this meeting to order. All meetings of this council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statute, so the citizenry may be aware of the time, the place, and the agenda of this meeting. We'll have a roll call.
Appleby.
Here.
Brunner.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
Gunderson.
Here.
Rasmussen.
Here.
And Nadowski.
Here.
Okay. Next, we have number 2. We have a alderman's request for reconsideration of garbage and recycling. Vote December 15th, 2014.
I'll give a quick heads up. As of December 15th, the motion that you had on selecting or trying to enter into a contract with Harders, that was the recommendation from Public Works. You'll remember that you had a 3-3 vote, 3 for, 3 against. The mayor had cast the deciding vote against, and in that case, there was no further action at the December 15th meeting. It was slated to go back to Public Works, which would have been next week, Monday night. We had a special committee meeting that was slated to occur. It ended up being tonight, based on the assessor quotes, which is the other item that's on for tonight for the revaluation of 2015. In between there, I was notified by Alderman Rasmussen last week. He had sent me an email, indicated that he would like to have the topic of the garbage and recycling reconsidered. With that, typically a reconsideration in your ordinance, and I'll read it off for you because it explains why we're here tonight and not at Public Works or not at the next council meeting. You have under Chapter 9520 sub E of the Weyauwega Code of Ordinances, it says reconsideration, and it's under the conduct of your meetings, meeting deliberations. Reconsideration. When a motion has been decided, it shall be in order for any member who voted in the majority to move a reconsideration thereof at the same or next succeeding meeting, and the mayor shall call for a roll call of the alderpersons, which is what you would end up doing tonight. If a majority of the members present shall be in favor of a reconsideration, the subject shall be before the council for further action. County goes on to say specifically a couple of things you can say about a reconsideration motion per your ordinances, and then you also follow Robert's Rules of Order. A few things you can say are any member who voted in the majority can make the motion. So in this case, the prevailing side was the 3 council members who voted no, and then the mayor as well. That's the majority side. The next thing is it must be made at the same or the next succeeding meeting of the council. So technically, the item that's on the agenda would require a motion by the individual who is requesting reconsideration. The motion would be to reconsider the item. And the reason we're here tonight is because, like I said, we were looking at a special meeting for the assessors. If you did not take it up tonight, it would technically, if there was a request and it wasn't on the agenda, we could get into a messy situation where an alderman could just call for reconsideration. And it would be somewhat in order to talk about it, but if we didn't have it on the agenda, it would be a little bit blurry. But this being the next council meeting would be when the reconsideration would be taken up. The next thing then is if both of the above are true, it is in order to take up a reconsideration. So again, anyone who voted in the majority can make the motion, and it must be at the next succeeding meeting. And then from there, any member of the council can second the motion if it's made. And then in Weyauwega, the vote on a reconsideration is by roll call. A majority vote on the reconsideration puts the subject back before the council. So what you will probably have is a motion to reconsider. If you get a second, there could be discussion on that. It's not specifically one of the, under Robert's Rules of Order, motions to table. If certain motions, they're specifically slated to be undebatable or you can't discuss them. So there could be discussion after the motion is made before the vote. And then from there, if at least four vote to allow reconsideration, what's next is the next item, which is item number 3, which is possible action on garbage recycling proposals. The motion that you had at the December 15th council meeting it would be like it's brought right back up for discussion and a vote then. Does that make sense? Are there any questions or anything that you have? I have, I think, a 3-page long where Attorney Kelly cites all of those topics then. It's a lot of legal language, but that's pretty much where we're at. So
That, just a question on, this is the next council meeting, would that be by any chance for the meeting that would have been scheduled at the end of that meeting? I mean, do special council meetings count? I mean, obviously they must, but I thought I'd ask the question. Because then you could, get a special
Yeah.
council meeting anytime and,
yeah, it would be either this meeting or the January 19th meeting.
so there's nothing said that it would have to be the one that was a normal, regular
Right.
council meeting.
Right. Yeah, this is the next meeting after.
I mean, it's special,
The
it
recon-
says,
yep.
yeah.
Yep. So other than that, that's a little bit of the background. That's pretty much all I know and where we're at. And again, as I mentioned, the request that I received was from Alderman Rasmussen. Typically, the person that makes the motion then is that person then.
Well, with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion then to request a reconsideration of the garbage and recycling vote from December 15th. But in all fairness, let me explain myself here, gentlemen.
We can't have
You-
that until,
Well, see, that's-
cannot have that until we
Excuse
have a
me.
second.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Right, that's
I'll
correct.
explain myself when we're done.
Okay, I'll second it for explanation.
Thank you.
And then, so I clarify real quick, this vote is just the idea of reconsidering. So if it passes, so right now, we're not talking about the topic, we're talking about whether you would allow
Oh,
reconsideration. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, because if you vote yes, then it's allowed to be reconsidered. If 4 vote no, then it's, or if you have 3 and with the mayor deciding, then it's put to rest.
I rescind my second then.
Yeah, I thought maybe it
I'll
would,
second it.
well, I thought it should be explained before you even make a motion, because it was just a motion, it's so vague that who knows what it's even about, so then it's made, seconded, and everybody else is going, well, you know.
It's just like any other time. We
Mhm.
cannot make any discussions on anything unless we have a motion
But
and
you-
a seconded.
True, but usually we would have an agenda and know from our packets what the details are before. This is so,
Yes, you are correct on that, yes.
so do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I believe that, yes, we should have had something in there.
So I'd like to reconsider even having a motion made before explaining self would happen.
He can make the motion to reconsider and it supersedes anything else. In talking with Attorney Kelly, you could be in the middle of your assessor review right now. And if Scott would move to reconsider while we're in the middle of the assessor item, you would drop the assessor item and then that takes priority then. So it's technically, it's an item when a motion is made, immediately it either has to be seconded or not, and then the discussion would be held then after that. But what I can tell you is the information I have was an email that was very simple and said, I would like to reconsider.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor, so Scott can now,
Yes.
Well, now we'd have to do a roll call first, because if it doesn't pass, it just ends.
No, it's up to you. The mayor calls the vote.
Oh, okay.
So after you have a motion and a second,
Mhm.
you could discuss that.
Oh, okay.
But it's up to the mayor when the vote is. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And it will be a roll call vote too.
Yep. So right now, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns on this? So now would be the time, and I guess,
so Scott doesn't talk now.
No, he would.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, all right.
It's,
Alright.
and anybody can speak.
It's open for
Okay.
discussion.
So if you have something you wanna say, you can say it.
Oh, okay. I'd love to hear from Scott, cause it was pretty cut and dry, like, the email was pretty simple, right?
Mhm. Yeah, if I have the floor now, first off, I trust in the Committee of Public Works that they did their due diligence when they reviewed the quotes, number one, and came up with the best selection for the candidates. But what troubles me the most on this set of circumstances for voting on this was the fact that we had a resubmitted quote after the fact, when I feel then that you should have had your best foot forward on that original quote. I have a problem with the integrity of this committee in allowing a secondary quote after the fact be even considered, for fear that it will taint us as a city council when it comes to future RFPs. If people think that if their first quote isn't good enough, or if they find out that there would be more competitive with submitting a second quote, and they do that and we accept that, then I think that really undermines our integrity. If we are going to allow that, then I suggest that the Harders also has an opportunity to resubmit as well. And that's where I'm coming from on this.
And I agree with what you said. That was my original concern with when that second quote appeared that day, is that it wasn't fair business practices, and it then ruins their integrity of us as a city when we try and get RFQs, because now people think they can just undercut the other guy once they've seen the other guy's quote, because that's what it felt like.
There's a potential to open a Pandora's box there for us and nothing but trouble in the future. And I have no personal choice as to which one of you provide us with sanitary service, as long as we get it. But what I do have a problem with is the path we've taken to decide which one of you would be awarded that contract.
I'll just give a quick reminder. I've got a couple comments on that process, but I'll wait till, if you take it up again, we'll get to that. But just again, that right now is on the idea of reconsidering whether you should allow that.
Well,
I mean, I know they blur a little bit, but, you know.
I mean, I'm just gonna reinforce what I said at the last meeting. It's nothing personal against Harders, it's just that Gratian is who we've worked with. We have the longevity of it, of knowing them with our provider, and my opinion was not swayed one way or the other by a second, because as I understood through conversation and clarification from Patrick via Attorney Conley, nothing was technically illegal, correct, Patrick?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
and so, when I sat down and I looked at this, my loyalty, to our providers, and like I said, we have not always gone with state-kept people, you know, with the example of the attorney, but, we're supporting a very local business, people that we are familiar with, people that have proven themselves to us, people that I know I'm confident are not going to be selling out to a future bigger corporation. And that is why I shared with you at the last council meeting on why I am very strongly for Gratian, and why people I've talked to in my ward are very strongly for Gratian sanitation.
Anybody else have anything to say?
Let me ask you, Alderman Edwards, if you would consider the option of allowing Harders then to resubmit
Sure.
a secondary quote as well then, to even
Yeah.
the playing field.
I would be open to that, absolutely.
Can I interject one thing? I'm out of order.
Probably with the next item, I would
Okay,
think.
Okay, just wanted to
Yeah.
just respond to integrity about that a little bit.
And I guess I will say my 2 cents of what it's worth. I am not for the reconsideration also, as, yes, I did make the deciding vote. Johanna is correct. I believe we have a local firm. We've had no problems. And I can tell you that I've had people at my door. I've had people calling me. Patrick has gotten the calls from some of the people that I've gotten calls from. And evidently it was posted in KD's on the wall. And the their people's voices have said, do not change our garbage. Because they're so happy, they're happy. A lot of the older people are happy with Gracians and their collection that some of them have told me that, in which their guys don't have to do, but there's some elderly people out there that get the neighbors to take the garbage to the street, and their guys will run the dumpster up to the garage and park it next to the garage. Now, a lot of them said, I said, well, there's a little bit difference in the price, and they said, I don't care if it's more, I'll pay more. The benefit that we get out of that is that much, I'll pay that much more. And born and raised here, I have to say that yes, we've never had any problems with Gracians. You call them, they pick it up. I've even had a couple of people tell me that they forgot to put the garbage out, so they would try it and call, and Gracians were here within a day. With the little truck, big truck, it didn't make a difference. They didn't ask questions, they just picked it up. So I guess I feel that we had both vendors there. We had ample time to ask questions to any of them. We had a discussion time. And if anybody had questions on that particular thing that night, I think they should have asked it. But the vote was called, and you all placed your vote at the time, I take it, with what you had.
I don't think it's a question of which one of the providers is better than the other. I fully agree with what you're saying here on behalf of Gratian, that's fine. But I am exercising my right to reconsider based on the ethical issue that I have as a council member by allowing a secondary submitted quote come in from Gratian. That's my platform, and that's what that's what's driving me to ask for reconsideration. Not which one of them is better, which one provides better service, which one's cheaper. There's a bigger picture here for us to take a look at. And this could be for any type of RFP services to our city, not just the sanitation situation. So you need to look at it from that perspective and not on an individual basis here.
And I suppose we won't know.
That's what I'm asking.
I suppose we wouldn't know if anything ever in the whole history of the city, or in the last 50 years, happened similar to this, and it went on because no one's perfect in bidding, and maybe the situation was respectable enough or believable enough to say, okay, we'll consider that, because like in any business, you've got a vendor, somebody that is bringing you excellent service for so long, they trip once or do something, you say, well, is it reasonable? Did you trip because of this or that? Well, it's believable, so because of your history, we do that in all areas of business, etc. And being that, considering there was nothing, it was all right as far as the lawyer said. That's, so I am trying to see right down the middle also. Trying. But I don't like just, well, somewhere in the future, somebody's gonna, well, maybe this is the future, and nobody knew that in the past, there was the same thing, maybe a dozen times. Who's gonna find out, you know? I mean, who's gonna go back and see if that's true or not? But yet, we're just presuming that this is the worst thing that has ever happened in the city.
I don't think it's presuming that at all. I think it's just giving the other company that didn't get two chances at putting in the same bid, a chance to even the playing field. We look at it and then we make a choice based on, a smart discussion,
It's
which
like-
I'm fine with.
Yeah,
I think
so-
that's a good way to go.
I guess then what are we really asking ourselves? Is it that we ask Harder's then for a second bid, or, and did we officially ever accept the second bid from Creation?
No, that's what, sorry, I was planning on jumping in, but that's what my comments would be about when you get to the item. Now, the problem with these is the two topics that are on your agenda start to blur together. So what you may want to do, because it seems like a lot of your discussion now is on the latter, when you actually get to the garbage topic, so maybe you want to have the vote on the reconsideration, or at least see if anybody has any more discussion on the idea of allowing someone or allowing reconsideration to happen. And then with the quotes, I've got a couple comments on what the actual motion was, but I'll wait until we get to that, because it's not really, my part of it isn't really relevant to whether or not you'd let somebody reconsider. Does that help? You might want to clear that issue first, and it's whenever you feel like you're done discussing the reconsideration idea, and then get to possible action on garbage recycling proposals.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments, concerns on reconsideration of the garbage and recycling from our December 15th meeting?
So to clarify, Patrick, this
Yeah.
means if we vote for reconsideration, means that we open this up for further discussion and solution or potential opportunities to view this in a different fashion, correct?
That's correct.
It brings back the
It brings
original.
back, it
Brings
opens
back
up,
up for us to talk about.
it rewinds you to the point before you voted at the last council meeting. So you're back.
That's all it is.
The motion that is on the table, or the idea that's on the table is, the motion was to recommend getting into an agreement with Harder's for 2 years, 2-year contract with the city option for a 3rd year.
Right.
Now, the idea was that there wasn't probably going to be any finality to that there would then be some type of a contract negotiation, and then it would come back again. But what you're reconsidering, if it's voted in 4 or more vote aye, you're allowing it to be discussed further. So a no vote would be, you don't think that we should reconsider it, in that you think we should be done. And I know that doesn't sound very smooth, or, you know what I mean, but that's
It's a
really the way it
technicality
is.
to
Yes
open
or
up
no,
the
up or
door
down.
for
Yeah.
discussion is all it is.
Right. And then we'll get into,
Where
we'll
we
do
go
the vote
from here?
first. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? We will call the question then. Roll
It's-
call.
Yep. Appleby? Brenner?
Nah.
Edwards?
Nay.
Gunderson?
Aye.
Nadowski?
Aye.
Rasmussen?
Aye.
4 ayes. So then we get to the next motion, and that passes, so a reconsideration is allowed. Where you are now then is, going into the last meeting, there was a recommendation to approve or accept the quote from Harder's, and the motion that was made was, again, to enter into an agreement with Harder's for 2 years with the option of the 3rd year. for a little bit of background, and again, I'll say again that I'm thankful that we filmed the meetings because it's easier to backtrack and watch what happened, and we'll film this one too, and people can, backtrack and check it out too. From my perspective, you had the 2 quotes that came in, and they came in August, or you had 4 quotes. The 2 that are relevant to this are Harders and Gratian. Now, at I believe it was the December council, or December Public Works Committee meeting, Gratian had offered up 2 separate proposals in addition to the one that they turned in. Technically, the committee never really acted on those. Now, there was some discussion that, and I remember myself, that we were going to check with Attorney Kelly on whether it was legal, and again, Attorney Kelly had said it is not illegal to consider them. The problem is the committee and the council never really voted to say, do we accept these for review or do we decline them for review? What happened was there was a motion to recommend Harders. So in a way, the idea of changing quotes or supplying changed quotes was prevalent in the meeting, and it was there, but it was never really acted on at all. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Either accept
to
it or
allow,
not.
yeah. And then at the last council meetings, you had this topic and there was a vote that was held. But then, and then when it didn't pass, the comment at the council meeting was it would go to the next Public Works meeting. So there really wasn't like another action there. And like I said, the idea of a second quote or changing the quotes, it's not illegal, and you never really said, yes, we'll take them though either. It's kind of really gray.
I think it would be safe to say that it was an assumption that we accepted them,
What?
the quotes.
The 2 original ones? Or
No, the
what?
amended or the,
All of them. Because we did not act on them either way. So if you wanna
I
argue.
think that's fair to
it,
say.
You can argue it, and you can safely say as well that we accepted them.
Yeah, and I can't say either way. I'm giving background on, so.
I know our action from the Public Works meeting, or our recommendation, was taking the 2 original ones,
Right,
not considering those ones, as we didn't feel that those were,
right.
That's what I recall.
fair to get thrown on the table.
Yeah, I
So-
watched on YouTube.
That was one of the main
That was
deciding
my
factors on why
understanding
we
that
wanted to
that's what
go.
you were bringing to the full city
Was
council.
the original.
Was the original 2.
quotes that were in there, and I basically, I think I pretty much said in there that
You did.
I wasn't gonna consider those because, one, it didn't seem right, and these are what we have in our plates, let's act on these and get this motion forward.
Hence, the door is open for reconsideration, people.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. That's why we did this.
So, I mean, the papers that were handed in were never into consideration in the Public Works meeting. Now, I don't like the way that can just happen where, we have a open meeting and somebody decides to turn in new numbers, so I guess if that's an open door, I don't know if there's a way we can look at in an ordinance or some type of
Well, to me, that's a
requirement to close that
procedural
door, because I don't like that door being
issue.
open.
Yeah.
Or do we just set the precedence now that we won't accept secondary quotes? Which I think Patrick's saying is still the option.
The Public Works did accept the quotes, correct, Patrick?
Public Works considered the 2 quotes
The original ones.
that were submitted
Original.
like in August. Now,
Okay.
like I said, it's hard to say they were at the meeting, but the motion sort of veered towards the idea of going with Harders, and then I hesitate to say this, but I think you would have an interesting discussion if you didn't have a reconsideration and you just kept going based on the last meeting. That if then you'd consider that motion that you had didn't pass to go with Harders on certain terms, then the idea would be you probably would have to do something with Gratian's quotes. You'd have to deal with them allow them, not allow them, but to this point, you haven't. And technically, the topic that's on here is the idea of, again, just choosing harders for a set amount of time, which on its own doesn't really say, yes, we would allow this in the future. So it's hard to set a precedent with this, you know what I mean?
Did we muddy the waters ourselves by even debating the second Gratian bid?
I don't think so, because I
When we
think,
should- When Public Works wanted to present to the council the two bids that they had been presented, which is probably what we should have been presented with, and that's it.
yeah. Legally, Attorney Kelly just said it's not illegal to allow.
I know, Patrick, it's not illegal,
Right.
but I have an ethical issue with it. And that's my
Right.
stand on it. The legality of it isn't a consideration. It's what stand do we take, what integrity do we have as a council to do business correctly?
So, did I hear you, Scott, correctly when you said maybe in our packets, we should have only received the first two original?
For
bids
consideration.
For consideration, right?
By muddying the waters, by adding the additional Gratian, I just think that,
Right.
that created an issue in my mind.
And
Yeah.
just to clarify, you didn't have them in your packet, you just had the originals, and even for tonight, you only have the originals. And I apologize, I hope you understand my position, though, that I've gotta be kinda, when you watch this, it looks like I'm sitting on the fence, but in a way, my opinion of how this all went down doesn't really matter at all. My big goal is what's legal, what's not, and how to guide you to make a decision. Does that help? So I don't mean to get into, what I think or whether I agree with what anybody thinks, because it really doesn't, it's not relevant.
And I am not the city council by being one person. I invite everyone to express their opinions.
Yeah. Well, and
The ad
oh, sorry.
that we put in, do you know what the ad that we put in for garbage pickup, what it was contained? The
Yeah,
rating?
that's in your.
Or-
Yeah, there's a
yeah,
piece on here, on it, but I do have, the document that went out.
Yes,
I have that, yeah. What, is there something you're looking for specifically on that?
yeah.
It basically says like the contract will be based on the number of residents being served, lump sum included for municipal locations. City currently has roughly 636 residents to be served for garbage and recycling services, and there's more on there as well.
It's a 4-page document, but
Did you put anything on there that the city has the right to refuse?
the city reserves the right to reject any or all proposals and to award the contract to the contractor who, in the judgment of the city, will best serve the interest of the city. In selecting a contractor, the city will take into consideration fees, experience, qualifications, familiarity with the city, and familiarity with the city's existing program. And it's meant to be, we don't have a scoring in here that says we'll score you based on these, and then at the end we'll spit out a grade, and then you get to pick a grade. It's more that's basically a disclaimer that says the city reserves the right to reject any or all proposals and to award it to whoever you feel will best serve the interest of the city. And that's very subjective to
Right.
your opinions. Is that's what you're looking for?
Mhm.
Okay. Yep.
So really, my thinking is that's what transpired. Can't think of what was in everybody's mind when they voted, but that's what I would have to say. If that's not the case, and you want to do it, then I would suggest that you refuse both of them and start all over.
Just some perspective, but I agree with how things are going. Maybe start over, which is quite rude to companies, what we're putting them through to earn their money, I guess. Think about what you did with reconsidering yourself. You thought about something. Let me just say this. One bid I had once on building an addition, quick story. I was so excited to get the numbers back to the lady verbally over the phone that I forgot to put the materials on. It was right on this sheet. I forgot. So I get called back 10 minutes later, said, I'm sorry, I forgot. It's a small addition. I said, it's $2,000 more. And when she called somebody else, said, why would he do that? Well, because he forgot. So I guess I have a little more compassion on small business that you don't always do, you don't always, for some reason, come through. Make a mistake, don't realize something or another. In the same thought like that, you voted and then you also reconsidered, so in a way, that's bringing your second bid back, in a way, in a smaller way, a different venue maybe, but you similarly did, you were for, and then you said it's not ethical. So in other words, you thought about where Gratian might have thought about or saw something like I did that time and said, oh gee, that's not what I meant. I guess I didn't understand it. There's so many numbers, so that's where I'm coming from. I guess maybe I'm more compassionate, understanding mistakes in small business. So that wraps up what I'm saying is, I'll make mistakes, see the bigger picture, and start over with the level playing field if both of them agree and say, I wonder too, do either the providers see something that they didn't see going into it as far as just, well, Gratian knows the place, but did Harper, do you see anything different than what you were expecting when you gave your numbers? Nothing different. So that wouldn't. So if that doesn't affect his bid anyway, then I guess we shouldn't have a reconsideration of, to put it out and waste all that time again on roll call or voting calls what should come next, so I don't think we should go back and say, here, it isn't an auction, I guess, or a reverse auction, or whatever you want to say, it isn't that, so we'd be wasting a lot more of someone's time.
So where do we go from here? I mean, I'm constantly feel compelled to ask, now what is the next step? Because otherwise we spin our wheels. So what is the next step?
Yep, so you had a vote 4-2 to allow reconsideration of the motion that failed or did not pass at the December 15th meeting. Now,
Okay.
you had, and I apologize off the top of my head, I don't have the specific who made the motion and who made the second, but what you could do is
I
have
think I
a-
made it and
I
Keith seconded it.
Okay, and that sounds about right. So I mean, if you want to make that motion again and second it again, then it would be on, you're technically reconsidering that action, but on your agenda, you've got.
So we're basically re-vote, so I understand, we're re-voting on exactly what we voted for on December 15th.
That's what,
Correct.
so when you say reconsideration, it's reconsidering that vote. Does that make sense?
So the same vote, same thing that was on the table before.
The same,
Is it on the agenda?
Yes.
Yes. And even if it was not on the agenda, it could still be taken up, according to Attorney Kelly. But it's on the agenda as
I think it's 3 or 4.
number 3, possible action on garbage recycling proposals, and
So
it's.
do you or Nick or whoever have the exact verbiage from the 15th?
I will in a second,
Okay,
because it'll be on
yeah, I mean,
it'll be
it's,
on the council minutes. All right?
We don't have minutes at this meeting though tonight.
Hmm.
well, it's in our past if you go into your,
No, it wouldn't be.
No, because the way it was listed on the agenda was a recommendation, recommend approving a quote with Harder.
All right, just,
I guess, Scott, I have to ask if you said this is an ethical part of us doing bids. That night when we voted, you voted no,
Yes, it did.
okay? So what determined your voting at that time? You voted no, and then, so what made the change?
My own personal decision after walking away and thinking about that, what we allowed.
So when
Should
you
have
were,
been 2 quotes.
so when you were voting, would it have been better off for you just to say, I abstain because I don't have enough information to vote on this?
That would have been an option that I could have easily weighed.
But there again, we don't always think of just like other things, forgotten bids or whatnot,
But
Again,
given the
another
inf-
example, he should have, but he didn't, and
It was a
could
consideration.
have.
I don't
We
remember
all
exactly how we
dropped
did
it
this one.
somewhere, that's all I know.
To enter into an agreement with Harder's
I think it's
for
for
2 years.
and an
Okay.
option for a third.
All right, so you need me to make that same motion again, is that what you're saying?
It would be
All right.
appropriate. yeah.
All right, that'd be appropriate. I'll make a motion that we enter an agreement, or enter into a contract with Harders, the Fox Valley, for 2 years with an option on the third.
Second that motion.
Motion's been made, seconded. Any comments or questions? So now, this is just that you're asking him for a contract. It's not stating that we're going to accept it.
Right.
We just want him to give us a contract.
We're gonna draft a contract with them, correct?
Right, and what you would have then is attorney, well, we would work with them if this passes on a contract, and Attorney Kelly then would review it, present it to the council to be voted up or down. So again, that motion, if it would have been at the 15th, or if it would be tonight, it's not a final, this is who you're going with, but there would be, if it passes, effort put into developing the contract. You know, and Attorney Kelly would take a look at it to make sure the city's covered on.
Now, this is pretty much just objective here, but to me, if you drop a contract, you're saying we're going with you. I mean, I don't know what would.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically, that's what we're saying, not to drag Grayson back and forth again.
It's-
That's basically it, you know, I don't know anything that would cause it to change if you,
That's why I asked that question.
I mean, there could be terms, you know, the attorney could say the city needs this. And if they wouldn't be agreeable to it, well, I mean, there's times where you try to negotiate an agreement with somebody and you can't get an agreement, but like you say, yeah, usually it's,
but it's all,
more times than not, it works out, though, you
it's
know.
all in black and white too, it hasn't.
The big,
No.
big thing is you don't have a contract in front of you to vote on right now, so you'd have to draft one. And to do that, you would have to incur some costs with the attorneys to do that, so.
I guess I just would like to say one thing then, is if that's the way we end up going, hopefully, and because this is being videoed, that the community realizes and what we have just done. So what we're saying is we don't really care if we support our local people. And I will leave it with that. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I kind of understand what you're saying, Mike, but when you look at it, if you look at the cities they provide service to, Fremont, Marion, Pine Grove, Nelsonville, Black Creek, Greenville, I mean, they're all around us. It's not,
But that's their decision.
That's their decision,
It
right?
is their
And
decision,
and it's
right.
our decision to
Right.
pick who we want.
you're right.
And I'm
Yes.
just telling you that
Mhm.
evidently we don't care to support local businesses.
Meaning,
We
meaning the
haven't.
closest one that lives to.
Right. And that has been. I mean, we have no problems. I mean, I could see if we were having lots of troubles, lots of problems, yeah, then we probably may want to look further.
And we need to vote on this yet, correct?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we do. But I'm going to ask, before we vote on it, because I did have some people ask, if they decide to go with a different carrier, can the people in the community contract with who they want to contract and pay their own bill?
Right now, you have an ordinance that establishes a fee that we charge to each property that has this pickup. So the way your ordinance sits now, if somebody would contract with another company, they would still be charged $13 a month on their utility bill. And then if they contract on the outside, they'd probably be paying I don't wanna say double, but they'd be paying our fee and then they would be paying whatever their private fee is.
But the question I think is would it be up to the individual citizen, should they desire to do that?
It could be,
Okay,
it could be.
okay.
Yeah.
Is that what you were getting at, Mike? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I'll ask for question and roll call.
Or we need a motion first on
You
it.
have,
have it.
We
yep,
have the
you have a
motion.
motion.
You made it?
Mhm.
Keith,
was seconded.
Nadowski second.
Yep. Otherwise, we'd have had no discussion.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yep, so again, enter into a contract with Harder's for 2 years with an option for a third year. Now that, to clarify, it's a city option on the third year was the,
Mhm.
Yes.
that was what was
Yep.
at the council meeting.
Yep.
You're calling roll call vote?
Yes.
Nadowski,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Edwards,
Nay.
Brunner,
Yeah.
Gunderson,
Aye.
Appleby.
Aye.
You have 4 ayes, 2 nays, which means that motion passes.
Okay, we'll move on to number 4. Review of assessor's quotes for 2015 reevaluation.
We can,
Do we wanna
maybe take a quick, you wanna take a quick 5-minute break if
Can I
that's
ask you a
okay?
quick question? When would you want this contract to start? We worked for a year without a contract, I think 2012, maybe even 2 years. but-
2 years.
Yeah, without a contract. And we did start integrity things, just one thing I'd like to say if I could. We started out, when that started at that, bringing in that revised quote, this thing I don't feel good about, but anybody can do it, you can do it or not. You could have got percentages back from your recycling, and that probably shouldn't have been in there, but it was one thing I was expecting. But the one thing we did, and that was said at that meeting, and I had understood, is we could come back at our next meeting, when I talked about, well, what about all these city containers? The sewage plant we pick up on Tuesday and Friday, all the other stuff. Now that's, and I had included that in there, or I had made a mistake when including that in there. So you said, well, come back next time, I thought it was with your best statement. That's where I came back. It was 872 without the city providing all the stuff, without me providing the city, because we did the sewage plant, the parks, the whatevers, which, I don't know, he's gonna have to come here on Tuesdays and Fridays to get sewage plant. We used to do it once, and only were billing the city for once. Now we're doing it 2 times a week, I don't know why, because they asked for it down there. I don't know what it is, so we've done that, we've never even charged the city more for that, we never had a price, nothing. Any increases, the things were, they just had an increase in the landfill just January 1, I don't know how that's getting passed on or what, but. Integrity, I don't feel that that's a right, fair statement. When I came back with that, I didn't come back in mind to change my price. If you bid it again, then I came back, my premium would have been 872. And we just signed a contract for Dale, we have the village of Fremont, he doesn't have Fremont. Town of Weyauwega and stuff like that, we buy our fuel here and everything else, but my integrity is, people that didn't have their garbage out, that is a minor thing, I say, it's more or less, why fight with it, just go get it, and people they know didn't have it out. Now, I don't know who's coming back and getting it, I don't know if you care or not, probably don't, but, I don't know, but anyway, those things will come in now for the, I imagine whether you'll have an ending date for this contract starting on. And I guess with the city sewage and stuff, you'll wanna revise that, because we're not getting paid for that. We're getting paid for that through the city, so that'll be a separate item, so. You're gonna have to deal with that, I imagine, at the same time, because I don't get paid for that.
We had talked about, and I believe it was either council or public
Mm-hmm.
works, about those side, like, I guess, I don't wanna call them commercial, but yeah, the park, city hall, the treatment plant.
Yeah.
This motion, so in the RFP document, it said residential, and then on the side, we'll do the city hall in that. And so the
Yeah, so you'll
motion,
have
the
that-
contract,
Yeah.
I don't believe this contract that we'd look at, number one, I don't think we can turn it around by January 19th. It's probably mid-February then, at the very earliest, that there would be any contract brought back, I think, but I'll check on that.
Yeah.
But I don't anticipate that this contract would include city hall, the parks,
I don't think it
and
would,
that. So
but,
the intent
yeah.
would be,
Right.
if, and I don't think we didn't get a detailed bill on that.
Yeah, you'll have to get a price from, I would imagine, your other competitor, because when my contract ends, I'm not getting paid for it, somebody's gotta get charged.
And that would be considered,
So
that
I'm
we'd have
sure
to
you'll
pay
wanna-
for that,
You'll wanna get prices.
if
for
that's
that.
how,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think we talked about it at the public
We did.
works, and we would talk about,
yeah, I would think you're.
Getting
gonna
those quotes
do
in on
right
that.
away. I think that would make sense, but, that was the reason why the price changed, and I think if we even looked in the minutes or something that did say, unless I misunderstood it, that come back next time with your best proposal or whatever with that, if you gotta change, if that was in there, but, and I misread that a little bit, that was somewhat whatever, so that is it, so. That's all I have to say, and I thank the city for, I've been here many years, so I thank you very much.
And let me say that your integrity is not the integrity being questioned here.
Well, you said it was.
Our integrity is being questioned as to what are we going to accept? Where is the line in the sand for the council when it comes to the bidding process?
Well,
That in no shape or form was intended for you to take adversely.
well, I took a little offense that you said I came in and changed my bid, and I misunderstood it, and I think Mike put a pretty, or Bruce did pretty happily, well, maybe, and I didn't really think about it, I ain't gonna make no excuses, I'm not gonna walk out of here happy, but I'm not gonna be, somebody that's accusing the people or of holding, I'm not very happy, why would you be, you know, you've been here for a long time, but, I just can, I gotta go on and hold my head up and keep going, do what I did in the past. I don't feel I did anything wrong. It was a thing there that I probably didn't have correctly done in things, and I think for sure that the recycling thing maybe, but the other one, I misunderstood about coming back, but that was the way it is, so enough said, it's done, it's done. So,
That's why I said that the description that was advertised states right in that the city has the right to hire, refuse anything on who they want to pick.
Excuse me, but I have to leave. I have to be in Oshkosh at 7:30.
Okay, drive safe.
Yeah, fast.
Want this on, or should I take it home?
Oh, gosh, it's not your color.
You wanna take a quick 5-minute break maybe? Can I take a quick 2-minute break?
Sure, go ahead. We'll take a 2-minute break.
You cut it a little bit better, so.
Okay, we are back into session. We will go to number 4, I believe it was. My computer just went. On the assessor's quotes.
Yes, we did put out a notice in the paper, and then we did direct mail a document to obtain assessor quotes, similar to what we did with garbage. The handout I just handed to you, now that I look at it, is actually our letter from November 2013. And it was a notice of non-compliance. And that's the letter that basically started our discussion a year ago. And it was taking a look at our residential and commercial properties, the assessed ratio, which is you compare what your assessed value is, what you're taxed at, and then what it is determined that your fair value is, your fair market value. And typically, it is at least once every 4 years, all of your ratios have to be within 10%. So assessed has to be within 10% of what fair market is. The letter we got on a notice of non-compliance was that for the years 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013, our residential was at 116% in 2010, so it's 16%, which is outside of 10%. 116 in 2010, 113 in 2011, 112, 112, and so this letter came to us and said your residential properties are not within state law section 70.05 sub 5 sub D. And so what that means then is when you look down in the letter below those ratios, it says if the assessed value to full value of each major class of property is not within 10% next year, which was 2014, this year that passed, the assessment staff of your district will be required to participate in an educational program provided by the Department of Revenue in 2015. Lo and behold, in 2014, our residential, and I don't have that letter, I apologize, but basically in 2014 we were at about 112% again. So we didn't get within 10%, and that triggers that third or I guess fourth paragraph that says if you're not in 2014, your assessment staff is going to have to go through your training by the state. By law, and under that same section, actually it's under statute 70.75, you would have a reassessment that is required. And that's one of the, I think it's item page number 2, talks about full revaluations, exterior, interim market. It's varying levels of revaluation in your cities or your municipalities. Last year, when I got this notice, I brought it to the committee and I said, hey, it looks like we have to do a revaluation. Well, the last time was 2008 that you did it. And in 2008, I know firsthand, because in Green Bay I bought a house in 2008 and I know what happened to the value of my house. Right after that is when, I don't know a technical term, but the bottom fell out, I guess. So a lot of the values were out of whack. Not that, you really get to decide when you revalue your property, but looking back, hindsight is 20/20. You look back at when you did it, probably the worst time you could have done it in the last 5 to 6 years, 7 years maybe, now that we're in 2015. But the real alert that I had with this notice of non-compliance was, well, what do we need to do? It looked like at the time that our residential was going to be close to 10% for 2014, and so our assessor at the time, which was Associated Appraisal, that's who did the 2008 revaluation, they had mentioned to us, oh, this is a notice of non-compliance, but don't worry, you've got another year. Let's wait and see if for whatever reason you'd come within 10%. You don't have to worry because they'll be back into compliance. If you're not in compliance, you'll still be okay yet. We'll just have to go to training, and then that leads to the next question, which is if in both the year of your training and the year after the assessment staff receives the training, the assessed value of each major class of property is not within 20 or 10%. So it says if in 2016 your property is not within 10%, the Department of Revenue shall order special supervision of the subsequent year's assessment in 2017. Basically, what the state is telling you is you're not in compliance with where your assessed value ratio has to be, and if you don't fix it, we will come and fix it for you. And typically you don't want to get to that point. Now, to back up a little bit, for a little bit of history, we did collect a quote from Associated Appraisal a year ago, and it was for $30,100 for a full revaluation. And they actually had given us, in your packet, it's page number 1 for this item for Associated. And it talks about the full revaluation. Basically, 100% of the properties are visited, interior and exterior inspections occur, and the entire property record is updated with recent photographs, sketches, and property information. With this isn't a drive-by, check out your house. This is a full-on, go into everyone's house, take pictures, and fully revalue it and get a good idea there. Last year, I do believe the Finance Committee had recommended to do a full revaluation and to go with Associated Appraisal. And at that point, we said we should probably bid this out, or we should quote it out. And I will tell you that Associated Appraisal, when I talked to them about the fact that we were going to bid it out or quote it out, they were a little bit apprehensive about it because we had their quote, and I'll just tell you it's my mistake that they gave a quote, and then when we talked about this whole thing with valuations and where we're at, we had said, here's the quote from Associated Appraisal. They maintained their price from 2008. And back in 2008, I believe you had 9 or 10 companies that had given you quotes. And I think the low was $23,000, the high was $39,000, and Associated was at $30,100. So you didn't pick the low, you didn't pick the high, you picked the company that you had. Associated Appraisal has said this, I talked to them recently and I said, I know that you gave us all the information that you had, we talked about it at the committee, are your prices good? So with them, I already had their proposal. Now it's not a full-on, here's our references, here's this, but on my end, I said, are these numbers still good? They said yes. So I accepted it, and I told them that I would accept that. On top of that, then, you did get 4 other proposals. You got Accurate Appraisal. I should back up to I have a summary sheet. Accurate Appraisal, Bomar Appraisal, Keystone Appraisal, and Preuss, P-R-E-U-S-S. I did send to, I think it was 14 companies I direct mailed to, and it was the 14 companies I found by going through the Weyauwega County Directory of Officials. So every community in the whole county, who do they use? in addition to putting it out in the newspaper. So I mean, I feel like we put it out to probably every company or a lot of companies that would be interested here. On top of this now, what we're collecting quotes on is for 2015, it's for a full revaluation, because that's what the city had discussed, or the council had discussed, that's what we would look at doing, is a full revaluation. That way we're fully covered. In 2015, by 2016, you'll have your ratios back to, hopefully, they're not any different at all. So then you don't have the state coming down to say you need to do more, and, you won't have any hypothetical hand-holding by the state or anything like that. But the full revaluation would be full. I mean, it is what it says it would do. Some of the companies had given quotes just for the full revaluation. Some of the other companies had said, well, we could do more. The document that went out had said, it described a full revaluation. So that's basically the one common denominator, as we said, for a full revaluation, what is your quote? The quotes are from Accurate Appraisal, $34,500, just for the 1 year. Associated Appraisal is, and I should say it's item 4, page number 1 is just a tabulation, or it's a sheet on these. Associated Appraisal, again, it's $30,100. They had multiple options they gave us, which at the time the city had decided, let's go with the full revaluation. They're our current assessor. They've done the last revaluation in 2008. The next one is Bomar Appraisal. It's $29,200. They quoted the proposal for 1 year, a full revaluation. The next is Keystone Appraisal, $30,000. They had quoted a full revaluation, but that is for the full revaluation, $30,000. What they would add on then is a 3-year contract for maintenance, which then is the next 3 years of regular assessment. That's not, we didn't ask for your maintenance or your non-revaluation year quotes. The intent was after this year we would then collect those quotes. But Keystone had said $30,000 plus $6,800 for year 2015 maintenance. So in a way, your full service next year would be $36,800.
Yeah.
And then they'd also require a 3-year contract on the maintenance, so then you have $6,800 for the next 2016, 2017. Preuss, and I hope I'm saying that right, it's Preuss Appraisal. The full revaluation is $25,000. They did quote multiple options, the exterior, the internal market update, those things. But in their quote, what they had said was, in 2015, the maintenance will be included, but then we would request 2 years of additional maintenance at $5,500 a year. So then you'd have a 3-year contract for their assessor services. The first year would be $25,000, the next 2 would be $5,500. To get an idea of what we've been at for our maintenance on assessors, it's varied, and it's been $5,000 up to, I think the high year in the last few that I had looked at was like $5,600. But it varies based on the amount of work that they do for what Associated Appraisal has done. I did review the proposals. You do have the proposals in your packet. This is another one, as Mike had mentioned when we talked about garbage. The quote in there is, you don't have to take the low bid. It's, you reserve the right to reject any and all or accept any and all. Based on my experience with what we've had with Associated Appraisal, I look at it as being somewhat similar to the decision you made with the attorneys. And I'm not comparing what we have or what you could have, but Associated Appraisal, if you've ever seen where they're located in Appleton, they've got an army of,
College Avenue.
Yep. I've been very impressed with their service. I think there's 8 people that I deal with there with personal property, mobile homes. At our Board of Review, which is the venue where people come and contest their assessments, I can tell you that Associated Appraisal runs the Board of Review for us. And whether that's completely appropriate, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that they handle it very well to come in. It's something that before I came here I didn't run at all, I can tell you that. So I was very impressed with that, and they've been very responsive. Now I did, there are references and the proposals there. I did check on, who does what. I've come across the quotes that you had from 2008. A lot of the same companies had bid. A lot of the same companies remember that they bid in 2008 and didn't win. I'm not sure what the history is there, but the recommendation that I have is when we go with Associated Appraisal in the past, I'm confident that with their quote that we're gonna get what we need. Now it's up to you guys to determine, who should we go with. But part of, and I do have a note in there, part of, maybe not a determining factor with this at all, but, and with the city attorney that we have, I feel confident that we wouldn't get hung out on this at all, but in essence, we would have done a full revaluation in 2014, but in a way we relied on, recommendation from our appraiser or our assessor at the time, and they said, "Oh no, don't worry, you'll be fine." And part of me thinks you pick someone that's not that company, you hope that when we get the revaluation that we're in line with the state and that a new assessor wouldn't have to, I guess, come down on or have to deal with the consequences there. But I feel like with Attorney Kelly and with the attorney that we have, that we should be pretty good. Do you have any other questions at all?
Yeah, could you sum up, I went through all this as much as I could and
Yeah.
et cetera. And I liked what I saw with Keystone, just the smallness and the
Yeah.
way they presented themselves.
Yeah.
I also saw 3 out of 5 of these in the municipal, what's that magazine? we
League
get?
of Wisconsin. Oh, as advertisers in there?
Yeah,
Or-
there was 3 of 5 of these were in there, the first 3.
Sure.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that wasn't the point, but the reason why we have this issue is because of Associated? Can you boil that down? Because in
Yeah,
other words, I
yeah.
went through, there's so much information on what you're
Oh
saying.
yeah.
I'm-
Yeah.
The reason we're in this problem is not because, is it because of market values going up and down and now they're going back up? Is that,
Well,
and
it's.
how can anyone
I
keep track
think-
of that or?
Yeah,
is it
it's
something else?
very hard, and I mean, the state law exists to say you have 1 year out of 4 you have to be okay. So you technically have to be batting 250. So 1 year out of 4, try to get all your properties within 10%. So what they're saying is, in layman's terms, this is really hard to do. And so as long as you can get 1 year out of 4 where you're close, that's okay. The reason why we're doing this is not so much who your assessor is, it's when you do your full revaluation. When we pay an assessor for our annual maintenance about $5,000, $5,500 a year, we don't get a full revaluation. Now, if we were on top of this every year, we would pay $30,000 to $40,000 every year, and then you would always be spot on with everybody's values. But that's probably not realistic, because we've got budgets, and if you could pay $30,000 1 year and then be okay for up to 4 years, you spread that out a little bit. I think it's got more to do with you did your full revaluation in 2008, and your assessed value has stayed somewhat steady. Now those assessed values get reviewed by our assessor every year, but what changes more than anything is the fair market value. And so the reason why we're where we're at is because what's estimated to be the fair market value is 10% different than what the assessed value is. Now it happens both ways. Where in a lot of booming communities, your assessment might be too low, and then people are thinking, well, I like it to stay low, but the fair market value might creep up. In our case, it's the other way around, where the fair market values, you're assuming that in 2008 the fair market values matched your assessed values, but then they've dropped since then.
Yeah. Like I say, now they're on the rise again.
Yeah, and
Well,
so
so I guess
Yep.
I'll never understand it all, but the bottom line is we need to choose on one of these.
yeah, and maybe to
They'll be taking training.
well, they'll be
maybe
taking So what we'd have to do, and maybe the easiest way to go is just to walk through that letter real quick, and you walk through. In this letter, if your if your ratio is not within 10% in 2014, then your staff has to go through training in 2015.
Right.
So technically, the state's not telling us you have to do it right now, but what they told us back then was, let's see how 2014 goes. And if 2014 doesn't get you back into compliance, well, then your assessor has to take training.
But you said and it didn't, it came back 112 something.
Right, so our assessor, whoever that will be, has to take training in 2015. So now it then says, if in both the year of your training and the year after the assessment staff receives training, so in 2016, if you're still not in the compliance, the assessed value of each major class of property is not within 10%, then the department will come and do it
Right.
for you in 2017. So in a way, they're saying, do your full revaluation sooner, and if you don't do it at some point, we're gonna come and do it for you.
And that won't be free?
No, no, it wouldn't be free. But, you know, in a way, in a perfect world, you would do everybody's home would be inspected every year for a full level of revaluation, but because it's not,
Well, and reading through
You
some
know.
of these, it's not like, they all look like exterior unless by appointment, like if you request it or something, because they were saying, it was mainly just the outside measurements. Last time a guy came through our yard too, he never
just
asked
on
to
the
go
outside?
in, and in fact, he said, you still have the chicken coops? We've been there 20 plus years, and
yeah.
there haven't been chicken coops there probably for 30 or 40 when, right? He said, and I'm like, oh boy, have I been paying for chicken coops all this time? But anyway, regardless of that,
Yeah,
they don't go in and take pictures of everything. That's just a special.
No, that's what I was wondering, because we had just purchased our house in 2008, actually in April 2008, and we had a full appraisal done. And then these guys came through. They never knocked on the door, never talked to us or anything.
No, they just walked around in 5 minutes they're gone, right?
Yeah, and our appraisal was like $114,000, and that wasn't what our appraisal was for the house. And then they had us as a bi-level, and we're a 2-story.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, how do you get bi-level and 2-story mixed up? And there was lots wrong with
So
our.
what would that have been? Would that have
It'd
been
have been associated.
associated?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had to come here to the library and talk to them to get it all straightened out because it was a mess.
And that's part of the process is they do sit down with you too, and then they do have the open book that they run to talk about it.
What do we?
Yeah.
I guess looking at this, just kind of peeking through some of these, I guess a couple of them that kind of jumped out at me. Keystone, just because there's a lot of continued education under all their folks that are on there.
Mhm.
So I see that as a real positive there.
Mhm.
Real recent education too, so they've kept it up to date year after year. With, I can't remember the name, but the
Bomar?
Bomar.
Mm-hmm.
From their perspective, village, towns, cities, very similar to us and lots of them. So they have a lot of experience, it looks like, doing just this. And I would say the same for the Accurate one. The list of credentials, good, and then the overall experience similar to towns like this and larger, but
But then you
all
know
very
what? They might all have experience, but they may be getting every other 2-story put as a bi-level also. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
thoroughness.
potentially. But I'm just saying.
That's why I like Keystone
Based on
too.
the information I have here.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Keystone, the
I'm
one.
very impressed with the way they present themselves, and I believe really are that way in a small family-operated kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't.
They seem real thorough just in their presentation, which
I don't know them, but they
Appreciate
do have towns of similar size. Was it
yeah they
Denmark, Greenville, Clintonville, Wittenberg, Osborne, Seymour, Two Rivers.
yeah it's
So I mean, not far off. And then they had a lot of continuing education that I thought was pretty impressive.
One of the things, and I'll put it out there and just admit to you that we did get the information knowing that we have associated and that we have been with them. What the information they gave to us was the hard dollars on what the service would be. And I will tell you that on my end, I had said, we got the numbers from you. They had asked me, is that enough to be considered? And I said, yes. So you would have gotten the full proposal, and the reason you don't have it is because I had said, I will accept your numbers. Now, Associated if you would like to see what their information is too, and it's probably fair that you do that, I can get that for you.
I
That's
guess
no
my
problem.
concern with that.
The reason
is-
you don't have it is because on my end, I said,
My
We're
concern
okay with this, so.
That is the fact that, you know, we've been off for 4 years and we've gotten guidance from them and still continue to be off, would be my concern there.
Mhm.
And I guess from a positive side, it seems like their service level is very good.
mhm.
But accuracy, maybe not the best.
Yeah, and it's probably fair to, and I didn't invite them or any of them to come, I said, we'll be reviewing it. But, you know, some of those questions might be very good questions for Associated to say, how did this happen? You know, how did we get to where we're at?
Well,
And
there
is
is
it-
one called Accurate,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, and they are more, so maybe they are more accurate.
Yeah. It's in the name, right? It's gotta be.
Yeah, right.
So if you need, if you
I
have
get-
questions for them, I mean, I'll put it more on me than on them for not having that educational information for you. You know what I mean?
I guess the only thing I would wonder is, you know, what conversations were based around the fact that we've been off for 4 years. And
Mhm.
quite a bit off.
Yeah, and I don't get stuck with
Yeah.
an IRS bill. I mean, it's not like the appraisers would be paying that bill if it's off again. I mean, who's gonna be paying that bill if, you would think the appraiser, it falls in their lap of responsibility, but I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah.
So I don't know, there's quite a few good candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any strong feeling one way or the other, whether or not we even consider Associated anymore, or so we can at least narrow down to which ones we'd like to consider?
Yeah, I'm leery about using someone that we used for a while that seems to be, am I wrong, have us in this predicament. I know the market
Well,
value, you know, I know the market also, but
It's been a challenge, but I guess I can worry about, you know, the fact that they've guided us to hold steady
I
on the
don't-
maintenance side of it. That'd be my main concern.
When I bought my house, they sent me a questionnaire and wanted to know what I paid for my house so they could reevaluate it based on what and I thought, you gotta be kidding me. That's all I'm gonna say.
what do you mean they didn't? They asked,
They sent me.
that's
a
not, yeah, I know it, I heard what you're
Yeah.
saying, and I'm
That's
like,
not-
I
really?
still have it.
That's
It
not an
grinds
assessment.
my axe a little bit.
That's not an assessment.
On something like that, I would, if I make a recommendation, or it would be on that to say, you probably want to have them before you to answer those questions. You know what I mean?
Or if they submit what a full appraisal entails for the residents, would probably be
Yeah.
a good
We
question.
have the
Because
book
if-
and everything from
if we're gonna-
2008, you know, on when you pick them, what the program was. We had the full binder, and I mean, I have got that in the office too, that,
I guess, I mean, I didn't read through everything that was in here.
Yeah.
But do they call out exactly what they do with a full appraisal, just so we know what we're signing everybody up for too?
They seem like they had,
yeah,
like
they had,
they all have a lot of detail after their.
Yeah.
There's a ton of information.
the big thing is, in reading through and in discussing with Attorney Calney some more on where we're at, you could probably hold this to the full council meeting if you wanted to, or if you wanted to hold it to be more further reviewed on, like I said, it's hard on my end to say, some of the questions you have, I think, are very fair questions, to say, well, we did this, we paid you a lot of money. If you've got questions on it, you know, to be able to ask them, hey,
So would it be possible to have them come to the meeting and be able to ask the questions, but yet still have time to decide, like, listen to associate on our questions we have, and then go back and take a look at who we
Yeah.
have to consider?
yeah,
I wouldn't mind seeing us follow up on references from Keystone. I like that they don't have 30 trucks sitting out in front with all the stuff that goes through their office and all the more potential for ball dropping when you're shuffling papers, and, you know, I may be oversimplifying that, but
Well, even if we wanna go that route, one thing we could look at is, I mean, I'm sure since you have a relationship with Associated, you can check with a couple other towns, and see how accurate theirs have been, and same thing with, I would say, Accurate,
maybe with all of them to be
Bowman
fair.
and the Keystone, which all I think have good references listed. Let's do some checking and make sure that theirs have been accurate recently. And then from there, I think we could probably make a good decision, or at least either eliminate or narrow it down a little bit, so that way we're not dragging, every company under the sun in here.
Yeah, I don't think we need to do that.
So if we can narrow it down to 2 or 3, then yeah, maybe we wanna bring them in here to have a discussion.
I'm not tied to any one company, but I think the whole reason the state has this 10% is because nobody can get it right. Because it really doesn't matter. I know from years, Dennis Tim did ours, and he did ours from the kitchen table because he grew up in my house. So we did it over coffee. I think, I think we should check references on everybody.
I'd like to know
but
how
I'm
they
not
do
tied
it.
to
How do they
anybody
do
either.
it? How can you take your beautiful home, price it in Weyauwega, and take that same house and put it in Appleton and evaluate it? I really don't
The
I
understand
don't know how
how
they
they
do the
do
stuff
it.
either.
I
And
mean, the
it's,
fair market,
you know,
because the appraisals are,
Exactly.
It's
I
the-
think
it's
that would
sort
be
of the,
very difficult based on the economic setting of the.
well, it is,
the
but
place
that's where
is.
the kind of like the, what would you say, the demand and supply kind of a feeling.
Right.
Is that their
goes with that.
expertise?
That's-
Is that their field of expertise, is to make the determination?
It's all, yeah, it's all
In that
location,
area?
really. It's location and what is going on those, if that same house was out in the desert, how valuable would it be with no road to it?
Right.
See, it's sort of that kind of a thing. It's like,
Well, I think that's where the references come into play, who has been accurate with a town similar to Weyauwega.
Yeah.
and I
That's
prefer
gonna
seeing
tell us a
something
lot.
smaller.
And if everybody's like that, okay, now we got a different question. Who do we wanna go with, if everyone's in the same boat? But at least then we can differentiate a little bit, because right now there's not much to differentiate.
I don't know.
Is there a preferred method that you want? I mean, do you want to haul them all in, interview them all, or is there anything that you want me to go collect and then bring back to you?
Aren't you just saying
I
the
would
phone calls
check
or the
the
emails to
references.
the references of all of them?
So in other
Okay.
words, if you could contact the city administrators from like-sized city
If we,
for,
or
say
the
maybe,
contact or whatever, yeah.
yeah, 3 of them for each one of those companies, and then get an assessment, hey, how has it been going with you, how far off, how
Any red
close?
flags, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
You more concerned with the non-compliance, because that's the situation we're in too, on how the compliance has been?
Do they get a report either way on how far off they are?
If they're off, they would, for sure,
Yeah.
but,
Well, I can't imagine anybody's 100% on.
No, yeah, what I'm saying is, I'm
Right.
thinking is, there's gotta be a ton of cities everywhere that are in the same boat, and so if this assessor goes and has training, is he getting training every time for every city?
yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I don't understand that. Isn't he going to do the same thing over and over? When's he gonna learn? I mean, I'm being a little bit,
Well, I had the
silly
same
about it,
question
but-
too, because if they're certified assessors, I mean, it's not like we go out and assess ourselves. If they're certified, they should already have been trained.
Yeah.
They have a license, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me either, but.
I can get more information
That's
on that
government.
too.
But that.
You know.
can we
that's
follow
what
up
I
on
think.
those
And then
references?
from your
Yeah,
perspective,
I'll
I
get
would
your
just
report
ask
on it, too.
I would ask on service level too, just because,
Sure.
that's definitely gonna be a positive with Associated based on his dealings with them. They have a
Right.
good service level. So if you get a chance to
Yeah.
talk with other city administrators, you're gonna be able to hopefully get a lot of that information from those
Yeah.
gentlemen and ladies, and
You probably want to dig up that 2008 proposal
Oh, yeah.
from Associated also.
And
Because
the
if we have
binder
it
with
from
the
the other
programs,
ones, we
too.
should have it from them.
yeah,
Yeah.
Hey, do any of them have guarantees, so to speak?
guaranteed to be 100% spot on.
No, I mean, within that margin, what can they,
Margin,
10% or
I
something.
know anybody would guarantee, but
I don't know how you could, because market value changes constantly. How could you guarantee
But
something?
I know,
when
and
you
I'm
don't know
not
what the
saying,
stock market is
and I'm
gonna
not
do?
saying
Really,
guarantee,
this-
but
Right.
Yeah.
This whole thing is useless.
what's your prospect that we won't have to have the IRS
Well,
charge
it's a
us?
state, but you can't.
Yeah, I know it's not a guarantee, but it's like, what can you say to make us feel better about choosing you? And that, that's where maybe some
That's
of the
where I think we-
references come in.
Well, then we
Yeah.
can narrow it down, then we do
Yeah.
get those individuals in front of us to
Yeah,
say why we should choose them, because
Sure.
I mean, there's not much to.
there isn't really much.
Yep. No problem. Do you want this then at the full council meeting or brought back to finance to bring to the full council meeting?
Tomorrow will be fine.
Bring it tomorrow, yeah? Okay.
When do we have to show some activity on this to satisfy the state that we're
Well,
moving
basically,
forward?
the state lays out the roadmap for you and says, if in this year you don't have blank, well then this is what, you have all the way through.
Once we
What the
choose-
state is telling you is that if you're not in line by 2016,
Mhm.
in 2017, we're coming to help you out to do it.
So we've got this year.
Yeah.
So when would we have to choose somebody to get it enacted and have everything in place?
I would
before-
lean towards the council meeting in 2 weeks, and I don't think that that's too much time. I think that's enough time to get it to you for the council meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if we choose a smaller company. If you choose something like Associated where they have a fleet of people, they can probably do it on a fairly short notice. But if you're gonna take a smaller company that's only got a few people, you gotta make sure you
Yeah.
fit into their window.
Yeah.
So we
Never know, they
wanna,
may
we wanna
be-
let them know as soon as possible if we're gonna choose one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably smart to have assessors come out when there's no snow on the ground and it's not below zero.
Well, it
They
would take
focus
that
more.
long anyway.
Huh?
It would take that long for a
Yeah,
single
I
one.
know, I'm just kinda saying.
Yeah. It's generally done in the spring, summer type.
Yeah, I would think so too, right?
Why can't you hire an independent appraiser that appraises real estate through Remax or Century or anybody that would have a state license to be a real estate appraiser?
We actually did that for years when Dennis Tim did it.
He was one of them, he's in Pine River, I think now. He was
Yeah.
one of them that received the direct mail with the document.
Larry Tim.
Oh, that's Larry Tim? Okay, I apologize then.
Some of that understands the housing market in our area a little better than someone coming from another larger city. and
No, but
coming in here.
they've got formulas for each city. I mean, they're not comparing to,
I believe at the time he was working for Acres of America.
Yep. And I think he retired, didn't he?
Yes, he's retired now, I believe.
Yeah.
Big thing too, which, we mentioned and will be mentioned, is that when you do a revaluation, that doesn't automatically mean that if your valuation goes down, your taxes go down too. That was something that we talked about at the board of review, is that the pie for the money that comes in is still spread out, it's just spread out differently when you do the revaluation. So that's one thing, when you look at, whenever we get this done and we start to look at the tax rate, you'll see that the tax rate is going to change.
Right.
Probably going to go up.
Well, what works in our benefit as a city?
Well, the big thing in your benefit is that you need to get the revaluation done because the state's telling you that you have to get it done.
Okay, so we get
That's
it
your
done.
benefit, yeah.
Does it benefit the city to have it higher than it has been in 2013 or 2010? Or does it work to its betterment to have it lower?
It depends on how you define city, because you can define it a ton of different ways, and then how. On the city's end, if everybody's assessed value goes down, we're still taking in roughly the same amount of money.
So really, this is a
know.
technicality to put a dollar value to our industry and our residences. So it's-
Yeah.
what should it be? 112, what should it be to be in the right?
Under
11,
110.
110.
Under 110, right?
Yep.
Between 90.01 and 109.99. So within 10% of
Something like the commercial is,
100%.
Yeah.
sitting right in the,
Yeah. Okay. We'll get you that information, and then we'll bring it to the council meeting in 2 weeks. Okay?
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Okay. Very good.
Anything else for this council meeting?
No, I don't have any other matters.
Look for a motion then to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned, 7:30.